this topic, I have to give a sort of disclaimer to explain that I'm religious, and there's going to be a large portion of this testimony that is religious oriented. This is one of the first times I've spoken to an audience that isn't coming from a political angle. So instead of a religious disclaimer, I'm going to have to give you guys a different sort of disclaimer that this also has quite a large political angle. My grandpa actually has maybe more religious reasons for doing what he's doing, whereas, depending on my audience, for this audience, I have more political reasons for going forward. Very religious, of course. You can't really separate the two. That's what it comes down to. For me, my politics and my religious are both, everything's coming from my religious background, but when speaking to you guys, it's very political. Anyways, so I am fourth generation without a social security number. I blog and speak as a girl who doesn't exist. I don't have a birth certificate or a social security number, and neither has hindered me from what I'm about to do. But before I speak about that, I have to give a sort of testimony and a sort of why I think one should do this sort of thing. I'm not going to teach you guys how to get rid of a social security number, and I'm not going to tell you guys that you should not have a social security number, or that you will go to hell if you don't have one, or if you do have one. What I'm going to say is that your mindset matters a lot. There is the sovereign citizen movement, as it's called, has a lot of negative connotations because of the upbringing and people believing that one couldn't do what most other people could do. It was believed that you couldn't get married legally, that you couldn't get a driver's license, that you couldn't travel, that you couldn't pursue most forms of career, and that you couldn't pursue most forms of liberty. And as an American, that's pretty hard to hear, because we were raised also believing that one had the right to the pursuit of happiness in life and all the things of that sort of thing. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Anyways, something that's, to me, that's extremely important is that when we go into doing something, that we're not doing it out of fear or hatred. In the sovereign citizen movement, for a while, seemed to be centered around this fear of government and this hatred for government. I'm not saying that we should love government. I do not love government. But if we do anything motivated by fear or hatred, we end up being controlled by that thing that we fear or hate. So a lot of sovereign citizens said they didn't trust government, and they separated themselves from the government, and at the end of the day, they were controlled by government because they still believed the lie that they could not do anything without government, which is not true at all. And that's what I'm here to tell you guys, is that you can pretty much do whatever you want. You just have to have the right mindset and look at it the right ways. One of the most common reasons I see now when I talk to people about getting into this is they want to protect their children from government. They want to protect them from social services, they want to protect them from being owned by the state, and they want to protect them from being taken away due to their religious beliefs. And those are all good things. But at the end of the day, there's absolutely nothing you can do to protect yourself from government. You can send your kids to public school, you can homeschool them, you can do a birth certificate, or you can not do a birth certificate. Either way, if someone decides they hate you and want to take your kids away from you, they will do that. So if that is your motivation, then it doesn't matter what you're going to do. But if your motivation instead is to give your child the best lifestyle that you can give to them, that you love God more than you hate government, and if you love life and the life that God gives you, and you want to bless the world with your child, and you want to bless the child with what God gave you, then I can teach you how to live life without a social security number. But your motivation has to be love and not fear and hatred. So that put aside, I can tell you a little bit about my experience. My experience was very unique to a lot of sovereign citizen children. My dad didn't tell me that I had to hide away from government, that I could fear government or hate government. He taught me to have a healthy respect for government, meaning that I didn't trust government, but neither did I go out there and tell them that I hated them. I understood that in the moment I knew how to deal with the situation. I didn't trust them, but neither did I hate them so much that hatred controlled my interactions with them. He also taught me that I could still do whatever I wanted. If I wanted to travel, then I wanted to write, if I wanted to pursue these different avenues of interest, then I could do that. I just had to use my imagination to find ways to do that. And he even told me that if I decided to get a social security number, that was okay, which is a very unique thing among people that moved. Because they're usually raised and brought up that if you get a social security number, you have rejected your family heritage, you've rejected the blessing I've given you, you've condemned yourself to a life of servitude under the government, and there's no hope for you. My dad just told me, take this seriously, consider what you're about to do, research, and just believe this on your own. And so that gave me freedom to be able to figure out what I wanted to do. And I almost did get a social security number. Because at the time where I was being raised up, even though it's easier in some ways than it was in my dad's days, things were a lot different. The Patriot Act changed so we couldn't get a banking account with a string of zeros anymore. We couldn't get a passport as easily as my dad did in his days. I didn't know if I could get a driver's license. I didn't know if I could get a job, if I could work. I was 20 years old before I even started to try. And at that point, it felt like it would be easier to just marry some guy and do whatever he wanted to do. And at that point, I almost did do that. I almost did just decide to get a social security number and follow a different path. But a few circumstances let maybe take a step back and just made me realize I have nothing to lose. I might as well just try. And so that's when I began an application to try to get a passport. Not fully believing in either way, just kind of testing the waters. I basically told God, either you give me a passport or I'm going to get a social security number. Which is kind of a stupid ultimatum, especially if you decide to pick what I've been doing. But it was the mindset I was at the time. I felt kind of stuck between two worlds, not really in either of them, but knowing I had to go forward and not live in this life of isolation and this life that was holding me back from doing the things I wanted to do. So I began a passport application, I began a driver's license application, and it really all started with this. I brought my paperwork to show you guys, just so you guys know what I'm saying is what I'm saying. The first thing we did was we went to the driver's license bureau, and of course I told a lady, actually, let me step back. I have a few tips for how I interact with people also. First of all is presentation, which again this comes from my dad. And with a few fine-tunings for myself, but mostly it's from my dad. I'd go in there and Dad's just like, don't tell him right off the bat you don't have birth certificate and social security number. Just do what you do. Just go in there and be like a normal person. Be a normal person. That's a very important first step. Be a normal person and know what you want. What is your goal? Is your goal in there to get a sermon, or is your goal to go in there and get a driver's license? That is important. Mindset and what you're in there for. I was in there to get a driver's license. I didn't want to tell a person they were going to go to hell for having a whatever. I didn't really care, to be honest. I do care. I don't know if I'm going to help, but that's not the place to get this sermon. So I went in there and I started the application for my driver's license. They asked for my birth certificate. I didn't even tell them. It wasn't any of their business. This is my birth certificate. It's a homemade birth certificate, notarized by your family and friends, filled out. It's considered a legal document. It's just not a state document. And most people will accept this. If you get a cranky lady, she might look at it and be like, not knowing what she's looking at. Most cranky ladies, nice things, most cranky ladies are too ignorant to know the difference. And most of the people who aren't cranky will notice the difference, and they're more intelligent and be like, oh, this is interesting, they'll have a conversation with you about it. Which is what we all want anyways, it's conversations, not to preach out, we want to be preached to. So I handed her my birth certificate, there's no conversation, no confrontation. And then she asked for my social security number. And I told her, oh, I don't have one due to religious beliefs, but I don't think that will be a problem. Just giving that confidence that I'm not here to preach at you, I'm here to get a driver's license. That's all that matters right now here. And also presenting myself. I dressed nicely, I spoke nicely, I made eye contact. I made sure that the lady knew that I appreciate her as a person at least. That I wasn't here to hate her. I was here to get a driver's license. But of course, the ladies in the BMWs, they think everyone hates them or they hate everyone or whatever. So she was cranky, no matter what I would do. And she's like, there's no way you don't have a social security number. I was like, well, there's no way I have one. I've never been to a hospital. I've never been to a school. Literally, I went to an Amish school for 1 year. This is all I have for that. A few report cards from an Amish school. There's no way I had a social security number. I was like, how can I prove that to you though? She's like, go to the IRS office and ask them for a statement saying you're not in the database. I was like, okay, I can do that. She looked like she thought she had scared me away or something. She'd never see me again. But that afternoon, I went straight to the IRS office. When up to them, pocket knife in my pocket. I didn't even realize that was a problem at that time. Just goes to explain, I was this country girl, pocket knife, a little bit of confidence and a lot of determination. And it was like, can you look me up in your database? She looked me up and I don't see you. I was like, can you print out something stating that I'm not in your database? Some form of letter or something? She's like, I think so. She's like, oh yeah, sure, here you go. She's like, but would you like to sign it? I was like, oh no, thank you, I just need that piece of paper. Then I left, the lady kind of reflected, she's like, this is weird, but anyways, I got what I wanted. I went back to DMW, showed it to the lady, she was really annoyed. She was like, I told you not to come back. But look, I have this paper proving I don't exist. So she had me a phone call that lasted about an hour, and then I got my driver's license. And of course, once that was done, it was easier for all my siblings and friends and family since then. They've all been able to call that same route that I took. But yeah, it was hard at first just because of mindset. I didn't know if I could do it. I had to pretend to be normal in their eyes. I had to pretend to have confidence I didn't feel like I had at the time. I had to pretend a lot of things, and mostly I had to be polite. I had to be polite and pretend. And that's how I got my driver's license. But that was just the first step, because for me it was about traveling and driving. And there's only so much you can do with a driver's license. You can't really get a job, you can't leave the country with that. And so that's when I was like, okay, I've got the driver's license, but who cares? A lot of South citizens have got a driver's license. I want a passport, I want to leave this country. Let me get this, or I'm just going to go ahead and go the other way. If I can't get a bank account and a driver's passport, that's it, So I made that ultimatum, and I applied for a passport, and I learned a lot about my political beliefs, and even my moral and religious beliefs during that year. Just what I believe about Christianity and community, and what God wants from us, and just how we can live a life that is blessed by our heritage if we just choose to have that mindset. It's not just about a mindset of looking forward, it's also a mindset about looking backwards and seeing how what our grandparents did for us wasn't to hurt us, but to set us up in the path of success, and we have to see that for ourselves. Because we can see it either ways. We can see how they hurt us, or we can see how they bless us. And that's the year where I decided to see the blessings. And I wrote back and forth to the passport agency, exchanged these letters, and kept getting the things they wanted, mostly birth affidavits and affidavits of witnesses, school records, newspaper clippings. I have all that stuff here, that kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff. And at the end of the year, they denied my application. I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated that I was like, who cares about that stupid promise? I'm not getting a social security number. I'm going to try again. So I tried again. First I took like a 3 to 4 month break. Let my frustration take its path. Realized I wasn't going to get a social security number. There's no way I was going to start paying taxes. So this time I already had a good job. It's like, no, I'm not giving the government some of my money. They can't just take $110 from me and be like, no, we're not giving you a passport. So I tried again, gave them another $110, did all the same stuff as before. 6 months later, I got my passport. So, sometimes we gotta reconsider our promises, we gotta decide what we want to do in life, and we have to keep going after it. And sometimes we gotta change our mind along the path and just realize, was I blessed, and where can this lead to? So I got my passport, mostly just relief followed. Because I wasn't, again, mostly after the passport. This was mostly about being able to write and publish my works and travel and make money and live a life where I felt like I could do the things I wanted to do and was called to do without hindrance. I wanted it to be easy. Sure, I didn't have to pay income tax, but could I get an income? Sure, I didn't have to be under the government's radar, but could I even leave my little area? There's both sides of those questions are honest. A lot of sovereign citizen children are raised believing that they haven't gotten liberty, they're actually being kept in further bondage. And so that's what I was coming through that time, was just realizing there's lies on both sides. There is this path of success and excellence that you can come to. So I took my passport number to town, all these tips and tricks I've been learning and cultivating. I took it to the bank, sat down, and said, I would like to open a bank account. Normal young kid wanting to open a bank account. 3/4 of the way through the conversation, both of us dressed nice. We're having this friendly conversation, exchanging good eye contact, good dialogue. 3/4 of the way, he's like, look, I need your social security number. I was like, I actually don't have that, but I heard that if you use my passport number in place of that, that will work. And at this point, he's like, oh, this is bizarre. But we've already built a trust relationship. He already likes me. He already knows that I'm not some weirdo person who's going to come and blow the bank up in a couple days. I've built a relationship here. So he trusts me and enters in the number. He's like, oh, the system accepts you. You've got a bank account. So, presentation, mindset, determination, all this stuff matters going forward. So it's mattering a lot. It's how I've got what I wanted. It's how I've kept doing it. Sometimes I've been deterred and realized, well, this isn't what I really want. That 1 year mark. I didn't really want the Social Security number. I wanted to get the passport my way. My grandpa's way, my great-grandfather's way. I wanted to get it that way, and that's how I got it. The determination. Anyways, so after all that was done, I applied to go to Germany. I was really nervous, like maybe there's something on my passport that will keep me back, but no. I lived in Germany for 6 months. I got back. I was offered a good position at a formal wear store. I'm their head seamstress now. And I travel whenever I want. I'm basically my own boss. And I take off months at a time and live in my car for months and just go all over the place. I live the lifestyle that most people my age dream of living. I don't pay taxes. I have money. I have money whenever I want. I travel whenever I want. I go where I want. I do the things that I love. I'm with the people that I love. I don't have nasty employee, I love my work. I've owned my own business growing up. A lot of people don't understand, that is a neat thing. Sure, there are some things that I might technically not be able to do. Who wants a McDonald's job? Wouldn't you rather be paid 30 to 40 hours, $30 to $40 an hour doing something you love, than $8 an hour plus tax deduction for something that makes you hate life? Why would you want a McDonald's job? I should vote. Why would you want to have all this excess paperwork holding you and tying you to these different areas of life when you could just be free and do the things and go the places you want to go and live the sort of lifestyle you want to live? And of course it looks different for all of us. Not all of us want to be a traveling barefoot gypsy. Not all of us want to sew. Not all of us want to clean house. There's different things we can do. But that's what it boils down to. Look at my siblings now. I have 11 younger siblings, and none of us pursue the same sort of things. None of us like doing the same sort of things. Half of us wear shoes, half of us don't. Half of us do more skilled laborers jobs, half of us do other sorts of types of labors. We're all talented and imaginative and unique in different ways. And this just shows that there's options for all of us. My siblings are a testimony into that. And they're going to keep on being that as they grow older. And what I've done will help them be that way, and they'll be able to try new areas of life instead of having to go through the same hardships I had to go through first. There's a couple different things I like to tell people when they are like, well, you can't get a job, or you can't do this, or you can't do that without a Social Security number. The first thing I like to say is, all know about legal immigrants. If the legal immigrants can do it, then so can I. Whatever they can do, then so can I do. They make money, I can make money. They find life and liberty in America, and so do I. And in some ways, this is going to sound maybe controversial to some people, most of it just political crowds. But in some ways, the illegal immigrants are the ones that keep liberty possible and thriving in America for the rest of us. Without them, I wouldn't be able to use a passport number for my banking account. Without them, I wouldn't probably be able to use my driver's license. Or to be able to find people willing to hire me to do the types of work, which isn't necessarily true actually. Because the reason I have my seamstress job is because there ain't anyone else who's good enough at doing the types of stuff that takes for that. So that's basically where I've come to. A lot of hardship, a lot of mental battles between ages 16 and 20, thinking that this was crazy. Sure, I love my parents. My grandpa's one of my favorite people in the world. But I didn't believe the Social Security number was somehow released, as I was taught. And I'm going to let my grandpa say whatever he believes. He can say what he believes, and that's great, because it's benefited and taught me a lot. But of course, we disagree in some ways. His is more religious and mine is more political. But there were a lot of things I had to work through and realize that if I were to have thrown out the Social Security number because I thought my grandpa believed it was the mark of the beast, that would have been me throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Instead, what I did, for me, what I did is I threw the bathwater out and kept the babies. And I have this beautiful life that was given to me. It's a beautiful heritage. And I can tell other people how to raise their kids this way, so that when they understand that there is a joy to it, there is a success to it, and a great way to thrive without a Social Security number. Yeah, so I'm going to let him speak for a few minutes on his side of the story, and then once he's done, we'll have a Q&A, and you guys can ask whatever you like. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. And so first off, I don't come to mentally torture you. I come to set you free. The reason Yeshua the Messiah came was to bring us a better way. He didn't come to make us feel bad. He didn't make us feel evil. He didn't come with condemnation, condemnation. He come as a shining light. And that's what I come for, is a shining light. I like for people to see that Yeshua in me. I like for him to see a light that I sit on a hill. Now, the light does not condemn the darkness. It just causes it to flee. Those that love darkness can sit outside the light. But those who love the light can enjoy the light too, and be a light. So, what I try to do is kindle a fire inside of you. There's a song that goes, it just takes a spark to get a fire going. And you know, so that's what I want to do here today. I don't want to take a lot of time. I just want to show that my dad was a pioneer. People have been trying to make airplanes and fly for a long time before they finally was able to go further than 300 feet. And this faith that we're supposed to have, and this gospel that we're supposed to preach, is supposed to be to heal the sick, to raise the dead, to heal the leper, to cast out devils, and to give us a life more abundant than what we have. I've never talked to anybody that really loved to pay taxes, income tax. You know, young people don't know any better. They just think that that's the only way to do it. So they sign up at McDonald's to wherever to get their job, to get started. My dad was a pioneer. And of course, the Social Security number really never started until 1935. And really wasn't set down as permission by the to exist till 1937, when they got a judge in there that decided that they had argued this thing long enough. Church does that once in a while too, don't they? They decided, okay, we don't want to hear nothing more on this, we've made a decision. Well, this judge, you could Google this, in 1937 they got a chosen judge in there that said, we're not going to argue this thing anymore, whether it's constitutional or not. We have a crisis. And he said, I'm going to say it's okay, the Supreme Court judge, because we've got a crisis in this country. Now that's how this began. Now the crisis, he said, in this Google, if you Google the Social Security number, 1937, you'll find what I read. He said, there's people starving in this country. This country, if it's to exist, we're going to have to take care of this crisis. Well, so he said, we're passing it today. We're not going to argue pros and cons, whether it's constitutional or not. But you have to remember, this argument was going on since 1791, when it happened in 1937. The argument was there, there were certain ones that always prevailed because they couldn't pass a Social Security system until 1937, which was done because of a crisis. Guess how many people applied for benefits after it was passed? You would think it would be millions because the country was in a crisis. But no, there was only 12 people that applied for benefits. They got it in 1937. That was what was about to bring this country down. And this Social Security Act is no more constitutional now than it was then. The only reason that it does it because people like getting all the things that it gives them. And especially welfare recipients, retirement people. Well, I paid into this thing. That's owed to me. Yeah, these are all things that keep it going. But if you really knew what the Social Security Act did for you, it made you a person who supports the government with their money. It made you a government employee in contract with your government. That's what it made you. That's why today we got foreign laws that are prosecuting people under false charges. Is because it's a foreign law. It's called maritime law or admiralty courts. Because that's not the supreme law of the land that they're doing it with. They're doing it with these different foreign laws. Because once you got a Social Security number, you became in contract with the government. Oh yeah, they had some McDonald's or whatever it was sue the government, telling them that they didn't have constitutional rights to pass the Social Security Act. But they'd always find a judge and say, oh no, it's not a contract. It's maybe a trust. Who knows that a trust is a contract? That's what it is. But enough of that. What I want to say now is a little testimony. My dad was a Bible student. He was not just a student, he was a professor. Nobody said he was, but he was. He studied the Bible like it was law. And he wanted to go by that law. Okay? And so he studied it, and one day he come up against a real problem. It was in about 1948, something like that. He had moved to Virginia, and he was preaching at a church, a little home meeting, and the tithes that was coming in wasn't supporting him, but a little local store had started loaning him money, and he was buying on store credit. After 2 months, he was still $200 to the credit he couldn't pay. So the congregation just wasn't paying for his being a pastor there. So he decided, well, I know where there's a Seventh-day Adventist business down here near town, and I'll go down there and I'll give you a job there because they'll respect the Sabbath, and I won't have to violate the Sabbath. So he went down there, and well, the first thing that they had to do was to fill out a form of what you wanted to do and so forth. Well, at the top was that was Social Security number, and he looked at that and he says, "Social Security number? For me to work, I need to know. But this sounds something. There's something wrong about the way this sounds," he said. And so he said, "I can't do this until I go and do some research again." And so he went out in the country, parked his van, sat there and began to read his Bible and study and pray. And he needed a job there. He didn't know what he was going to do. He hadn't heard of this before. So he was praying there and studying, and here comes an old jalopy pickup and pulled up beside him. And he said, "What you doing out here?" He said, "Well," he says, "I'm praying and studying." And he says, "I really need a job." "Well, I'm looking for someone to work for me." He went to work that day as a painter. And Yahweh always provided for him every time like that, so that he would research what was at. Now, I'm not trying to tell you now that having a Social Security number is going to send anybody to hell. I'm not trying to tell you that. I'm telling you my dad's testimony. My testimony has been the same. I have worked at all kinds of jobs. I've even worked at Fort Benning. I've worked at Fort Knox. I've worked at Fort Campbell. I've maintained school buses. I was a DOT inspector in Kentucky. I drove school buses right to the inspection station. They'd ask me for my driver's license, and I'd say, "I'm not the driver." "Well, we just need a driver's license." They said, "Well, the school bus drivers that drove all the school buses, I had all of their Social Security numbers. I had all of their driver's license numbers. I had them all. So I just picked one of them and handed it to them. I just told them I'm not the driver." I did all these things that I'm talking about. They even, at one point, this fellow that I was working for in Louisville, I raised my wages because he was giving everybody else a raise. And the first day he looked at me and he says, "Well, we'll just write you a check right now. You can just be on your way." I said, "Oh, good." I said, "I'll just take a vacation." Before that vacation was up, I was getting calls because it cost him so much to use someone else, more than what I did, because I didn't have to pay taxes. So he says, "All right, I'm going to have to take taxes out on you," he said. And I says, "No, if you owe something to the government, pay it out of your own money. Don't take it out of mine. I don't know it." So he said, "Well, okay. I'm giving you a few testimonies, how that living the way that I have lived, I have never lost a dime. I've never had to pay them a dime. There was a point in my life back in 1997 where a lot of people that I respected, they told me, said, "Well, it's unlawful for you not to have a Social Security number. Everybody's got to pay income tax. It's unlawful." Well, I didn't really know whether it was unlawful or not. I just knew I was obeying what my dad had taught me. And I hadn't did a real good research at the time about it. And so I went to the Social Security Department and I said, "Well, I'd like to get a Social Security number. I've been told I'm rebellious. I was told that I was an unlawful person." And they said, "Well, what's your dad's Social Security number?" Well, he didn't have one. "Well, we can't give you a Social Security number if your dad never had one and your mom never had one. We can't give you one." But they said, "We do have a phone number of an Irish man in North Carolina that he's 81 years old and he's had over 6 states. And all you got to do is call him and he'll give you one." "Oh, good. I want to be lawful. I want to be doing what, I don't want to be a rebellious person. I'm not that type of person. I believe in good law. That's what I believe in." And so I called him the next morning. I told him, he said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "Well, I need a Social Security number. And they can't give me one at a Social Security number." "Well, why do you need one?" I said, "Well, they say my dad never had one, my mom never had one, and I'm an illegal person and I don't have one. And I don't want to be illegal." Well, he said, you never had one? They've never had one? There's an unlawful for that. He said, are you having trouble getting work? I said, no, I'm working, making good money. Well, he said, I can give you one, he said, but you're the first free man that I've ever talked to. He said, you don't need one because of the law. This is a voluntary thing. I said, oh, no, I don't want one. So for you people that have children, they don't need a Social Security number. If you have one, you know, hold to the faith. It always saved you. It sure saved you. Hold to that faith. If you can be free, be free. If you can't be free, be a good slave. Like the Apostle Paul said, pay your taxes. If you can get free, get free. But that doesn't depend upon your salvation. What depends upon your salvation is whether you can be free or not in Him and serve Him. Because in Romans 8:2 it says, for by the law of the Spirit of life, when I assure the Messiah, I am made free from the law of sin and death. I want you to know that there's been a price paid that you can be free from all the bondage and servitude of man. And you can serve Yahweh with all your heart, mind, and soul. And I want to be that light that people can look at, that's sitting on a hill, that if they need help getting free, I can tell you how to be free. I know all the laws. I've spent the last 22, 23 years studying law. I beat cases in court every year. I've been stopped by the policemen in multiple states, wanting a driver's license, wanting a punishment for no seatbelt, no insurance, and I'm telling you right now, I beat them all because they have no jurisdiction over me. I'm not in contract with them. If you can prove you're not in contract, and you can prove that you are a new creature, old things passed away, all things become new. If you can prove that to them, you can be free indeed. It doesn't mean that you don't have a ways to go. People, let me tell you something. In our culture, people have a long ways to go to be graduating from high school, called the high calling that Paul talked about. Some people, they may have more than I have because they have a faster spiritual growth than maybe I do. But it's what's in your heart that's going to count. I'm telling you, the thief on the tree that acknowledged Yeshua the Messiah, he didn't have to prove anything. He just had to open his mouth and say, I want to be in your kingdom today. People don't see everything like I do. I don't care. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to light a fire under you. Get what you want. Like this young lady said, she wanted to do something, and she did it. And if you want to do something bad enough, He's the power. It says in Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, He is able to do abundantly above and exceedingly more than anything that we can ask or think, according to the power that works in you. The power that works in you. You know what that power is that's supposed to work in you? The Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit. He told his disciples in Luke 24:49, I think it is, he said, carry in your bosom until you be endued with power from on high. Folks, that's what we should be seeking today, is that power from on high. I've experienced all kinds of miraculous feelings that when I tell the people they can't actually think like that because it's not normal. I repented when I was 8 years old. When I was 9 years old, I was shot and killed and dead for 9 days and 9 hours. During that time, I thought I was still alive. I had visions of chariots and lights all around. And I believe that the Heavenly Father looked at it and he seen that I was repented at 8. And at 9, I was a choice vessel. Did you know you're a choice vessel? Because you're still alive. When I was 45, I was burned in an oil fire. I thought I would never look good again. I mean, I was horrible. First and second and third degree burns, inch and 2 inches swelled. My flesh was just covered. It would never look right again. And I even pulled the skin down because I thought it was just a covering, that, ashes. I could just wipe that away. And all the skin come down and all the pain started. I shoved that skin back up. You can't even tell I did that. I shoved that skin back up and I suffered for a whole hour with such pain. I didn't know how I was going to make it. But not one time during that time did I seek any other help than Yahweh. And after an hour, I suddenly come out of the shop a little bit. I realized I hadn't even prayed. And I was memorizing Romans 4, 19 through 21 at the time. That's what I do to keep my faith encouraged. I memorize these things. And I started quoting that in a prayer. And it wasn't even 3 minutes and I was totally healed. And it took 4 days for all that ugly stuff to peel off. And after 4 days, I had baby skin again. There was no sign of the fire. These are the miracles that we can have when we learn to trust in His promises. And our faith does not doubt. So I'm here to tell you that what Yahweh wants is a people that loves Him with all their heart, mind, and soul, and moves forward with what they know to do, and trust Him. And you can have the desire to do it. I appreciate all my family, and I know, she said we don't maybe agree on everything. I don't care. I'm not looking for agreement with her or anyone else. I'm looking for agreement with my Heavenly Father. And what He tells me, He may be her in high school. I may be in 8th grade. But He loves me the same as He loves her. And He loves her the same as He loves me. And we all are in a growth period. Because there's so much about the faith that was delivered of the saints has been lost down through the ages because they didn't learn how to fly. In an airplane, when they got a little money, they just learned a little more about it. Pretty soon they put the money together and they build an airplane. And we've got huge airplanes carrying 120 people across in the heavens. And when faith is perfected, when the law of faith is perfected in your hearts and mind and soul, there's nothing you can do. Nothing. So I'm working at perfecting my faith. Just 6 days ago, I cut the end of my finger off. Did I scream in the hall? There wasn't nobody around, so they didn't know. But I'm telling you, it hurt. It was quick, like a guillotine. People had asked me before lots of times because they knew that I was stubborn. I believed in faith. I'm not going to the doctor. I'm stubborn. I'm not going. And they would tell me, you're just stubborn. If a member cuts off, you get a leg cut off or something, you'll go to the hospital. I said, I don't know unless it happens. Well, I cut the end of the thumb off. And the first thing that I did is when I seen that end hanging there on his thread, I said, Satan, get behind me. You have no right to take my thumb. I need it yet. And I got myself loose from where I got cut at, and I rushed inside the house, and I put it under running water in the faucet running water. And you know, that's double pain. That ain't just the pain you got, that's double pain. And if probably if someone had been there, I wouldn't let them touch it, because it's so painful. But nobody's there, somebody to do it. And then I realized when I got it clean that I had my thumb backwards. The thumbnail was underneath. And I said, I need that thumbnail on top. So I had to pull it back off and put it on right. But I said, you're not taking my thumb. And I began to thank Yahweh for my healing immediately. I didn't say, why did this happen? I didn't get bitter and say, oh, Yahweh, you could have stopped this. What did I do bad? Why did this happen? I didn't do that. I'm his child. He adores me. And I adore him. And I said, you're not taking my thumb, Satan. See, most of the things that happen in life is because of the devil. And we want to say, why did God let this happen? Well, he's testing you. He loves you. If your kid is in school, ain't they going to give you a test in your quarter, see if you do anything right? Of course they are. And we're going to have to be tested and tried. When I was put in prison for 7 years, I was tested and tried. I didn't want to stay there. But you know, I took every minute I had to preach to someone and tell them about this awesome Holy Spirit baptism that He has for us, that will give us power and life from on high. And there was older men in there that was in there for beating up their wife. And they would get down and repent. And this one fellow, 7 years old, he was filled with the Holy Spirit, standing up in the pulpit. They couldn't contain it. They couldn't contain it. Because he knew he could forgive us. And I saw all kinds of things. They finally brought me in after 4 months. They brought me up to the probation office and they began to tell me, you know, you did all these crimes. Well, none of them crimes, it's true, they was all fakes. They was charged under a foreign law that didn't even apply to anything that happened. All I did was root my child properly. And teaching him he needed to respect me. That's all. But they had me gang with it. They had me brutally hit. Nothing was true about it. So I told the probation officer, I said, I'm an innocent man. I'm not even the one that's mentioned there. Because see, I knew I wasn't a person of the sea. I was a people of the land. And they trying to charge me as a people of the sea. Do I look like I'm wearing a sailor's hat? No, I don't wear a sailor's hat. So I told him, I said, I'm an innocent man. I said, I'm in here because Yahweh wants me in there. I really never ever thought of it like that before. But when I was talking to them, it suddenly comes. I'm in here because Yahweh wants me in here. And when Yahweh gets done with me, I'll get out. But you can't get me out of here if you want to. They kicked me out 4 days later. I was in prison, and they didn't have a record of me being there. They didn't want the record of me being there. Because I was in there illegally. They never proved who I was yet. You see, you are not who they say you are. You are who Yahweh says you are. That's who you are. You're a child of God. But when you even go into court, if you ever go into court, you are a person of the corporation. You have no gender. They can't even figure out what you have. Go to the Supreme Court, they don't know what you are. You're just an head. In a corporation, there's no male and female. But you are not under their jurisdiction if you know the law. So, they kicked me out of prison after 4 months. And they gave me an honorable discharge. The judge said, this man is innocent. He hasn't did anything. And the court apologizes for him being there. So I'm telling you right now, you know why they kicked me out? I know why they kicked me out in law. It's because I didn't have a Social Security number and they couldn't collect any prisoners for profit. They couldn't collect any supplement from the government for me to get in there because they couldn't prove I was one of them. I wasn't one of them. So that's an advantage too, as a believer. If you don't have a Social Security number, they can keep you in prison. And you can stay there and enjoy it so much. Listen, I'm writing a book. It's already 120 pages long. It's of short stories of all the miracles that happened in my life. I've only got halfway through my life because there is so many miracles that I've received because I am a free man. I do put my trust in Him, and I won't let anything sidetrack me, not even my job. My siblings, when I was growing up, they would tell me, you can't raise a family if you don't have a Social Security number. They said, you can't even get a job. And I proved them wrong, and then top it all off. You're always giving me a better retirement than if I'd had a Social Security number. I make more money retired than most people that get their Social Security yet. Because Yahweh had it all planned ahead of time, how to take care of His people. And He's got it all planned ahead for you. I got a good daughter. I know I'm taking too much time, but Yahweh bless you all in your pursuit of happiness. That you may Yahshua time.